Okay, for 2b, let's start with the intercepts. So intercept, we're going to take the top and set it equal to 0 always when you have a rational function. So the top part here, x times x plus 4, and that's going to equal 0. So this time we get two answers. We get 0 and negative 4 when we set both of these individual pieces equal to 0. So 0 and negative 4 are x-intercepts. Next, we got to do y-intercept. So we put in zeros for all the x's. Now when you do that, we get a 0 on top over 3 in the bottom. That means the whole thing is going to end up going to 0. So we get a 0 for the y-intercept. Next, let's do the vertical asymptotes. Okay, so for the VA, the vertical asymptote, you're going to do, it's always the bottom equals 0 is the rule for vertical asymptotes. So the bottom one, we have to factor, and we're going to set that equal to 0. And that's going to be a 1 and a 3, and both of them have to be positive since everything else is positive there. When you set it equal to 0, you're going to get negative 1 and negative 3 for the two verticals. So I'm going to put, don't forget about the x equals we need for our answer, negative 1 and negative 3. For the horizontal asymptote, we have to use the rules. So for HA, I'm going to put rules, and the rules I'm referring to are the ones I talked about in the lecture notes for this particular section. We have to look at the highest power on top and the highest power on the bottom. Now in this case, if we were to multiply that out, we would get a positive x squared. And you also have x squared down below. So it means that my powers, if n is the highest power on top and n is the highest power on the bottom, in this case, both of them equal each other. Now we talked about in the lecture notes that when that happens, we have to use this formula, a sub n over b sub m. We're basically taking the ratio of the numbers in front of the x's with the highest power. There would be a 1 in front of the x squared on the bottom, so your b of m is 1. And at the top one, if you multiply the x out, you would get x squared, and that would be another 1 in front of the x squared. So you get y equals 1 over 1, which means that I can just put y equals 1 for my horizontal asymptote. So now that's complete, I'm ready to do the graph. So erase this here to get room for the graph. And we're going to put all our information down there. So when we put that information down, we're going to get, first of all, the x-intercepts. It goes through 0, 0. That's why we get a 0 for both of these, because it goes through the origin. The other one it goes through is negative 4. That takes care of the intercepts. The vertical asymptote, we're going to have one at negative 1 and another one at negative 3. This time the horizontal one is at 1. So we're going to show that with a horizontal line crossing through at 1. So now we've got our verticals with x equals and horizontal with the y equals. We're going to take a look at this, and now we're going to fill in the graph. Now this particular one is actually a little bit more helpful on the two ends, because this time we know exactly where the graph is supposed to be at. We don't have to do test points like we did in the previous example. We don't have to test each end of the vertical, because we see exactly where it crosses the x-axis, which means that you're going to have one part going down like this and another part going down like that. The graph couldn't be above here because these points tell us that the graph has to be down in these regions. So the only way that would work is following the vertical, crossing through there, and then following the horizontal. Same thing on this end. It's going to cross at negative 4 and come down that way. So that's how I know that graph has to be there. Now I mentioned before that the one in between the two vertical lines has to be one of these 4 shapes. So we have to pick which one will work. Now this time we're not given any information about the middle part. However, what I do know about it is I can eliminate these two. Now the reason why I can eliminate the last two is because in order for that to occur, the graph would have to cross somewhere in between these two vertical asymptotes. but I don't have any information. When I solved for it, the only x-intercepts I got was 0 and -4. So because I know the graph does not cross there, I know I can't use these last two models. So I know those are out. So it must be one of these two. So it's either one that is down below or up above. So if you're not sure which one it is, you can always pick a test point. And so I'm going to use x is equal to -2 this time to test something right in between those two vertical asymptotes. So if I put that in, I should be able to get a coordinate on the graph itself. So I'm going to put -2 in for both of these, -2 squared, 4 times -2 plus 3. And I'm going to work this out to see where exactly the point ends up at. So on top here, I get -2 times 2, so I get -4. And then down below, I get 4 minus 8 is -4, plus 3 is -1. So I get -4 over -1, which means I get +4. So I know that at -2, I get a point up here at +4. So I know that the graph cannot go down this way because otherwise it would have to cross the x-axis. So the only shape it must be is the U-shaped one, which means it's going to look something like this. So it's going to look like a parabola opening up, and I was able to determine where it is by putting in this test point.